In that Gospel of John, it said very simply but pointedly, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." It was about 5 years ago that a woman, Catherine Stockett, who wrote a very interesting novel. It was called The Help. If you had a chance to read it, it was challenging to read, but interesting as well. When she wrote the book, it was really a chronicle of 12 African-American maids who were caring for the households of several white people in the Jackson, Mississippi area during the 1960s. Many publishers, because of its subject matter, turned it down, did not want to publish it. But after some rejection, she found success. So much success that it remained on the New York Times bestsellers list for almost 2 years. Then later, as you know, they made it into a movie, The Help. It achieved a number of accolades and success. But why I bring it to your attention is the interaction that was going on in that particular drama and movie and earlier in the book. There is one of the maids, her name is Abilene, and she is taking care of a young girl, May Mobley. May Mobley is a young girl, but she is not, according to her mother, as pretty as the other girls, nor is she seemingly progressing as rapidly, developmentally as the others. So her mother does not spend much time with her, unfortunately, kind of like turns her over to Abilene to take care of. Abilene picks up on this and recognizes within the daughter, May Mobley, some of this sense of rejection by her mother. So, in very colloquial language, it is Abilene, while she's taking care of this young girl every day, she smiles at her and she looks at her and she says, "You is kind, you is smart, you is important." She does it every day. So after a while, hearing this every day when she's taking care of her, the little girl mimics, reminds, repeats those same words in that same kind of colloquial language. She says very smilingly to Abilene, "I is kind, I is important, I is smart." But then she adds, "And Miss Abby, you're my mother." What a change. You're my mother. Mother is not only the one that imparts the life, physically continues the living, but also the one that pulls the value, worth, and goodness out of someone, or lets them recognize what God had implanted in them in the first place. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Mothers give life, but they impart something much more important. They love us in such a way that they can affirm within us what God saw within us and gave to us, our own inner value and worth. For after all, that's what all of us have. And in that, there is something very holy, very good, very divine. For because it continues that creative love that God gave us in the first place. When someone loves us in affirming that richness that we are, the giftedness that we have, and the worth and value that's implanted within us. There's something holy about being able to do that. And in that play and movie, we saw Abilene being able to do it. And that's really what's important about the gospel, and in the second reading too. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Mothers and fathers do that very well, normally. And yet I recognize there are some here who would say, that has not been my experience. And in many ways they would say to me, but I feel as if I have not had those things. Some have even said, I feel crippled because I was not able to become all that I was meant to be, because I didn't have that nurturing, affirming kind of love. But then I would go back and I would ask you, but aren't there, weren't there, isn't there someone in your life who has been that kind of affirming person in your life? Isn't there someone who has affirmed you while you were maturing, or even now in your life? Isn't there someone who brings out the best in you, helps you see the goodness within you, recognizes and helps you see the value that is within you. Isn't there someone who has, in the play, in the book, been like Abilene for you, a real mother and a real father for you? I think that's an important thing on this Mother's Day weekend, to recognize within us and in our life and our experience those who have been affirming, those who have been the voice of God, who followed that commandment to love one another, to love another in the way in which God has first loved us. It's important for us to do that, to take time and say, look at those people in your life who have been affirming, who helped you see the gifts when you did not recognize them, who continued God's creative goodness within you and brought that out when you think there was not much good within you to be brought out, who recognized in you someone of value, worth, dignity, and potential, and helped you see it and even maybe made you stretch beyond yourself. I think that's an important thing to acknowledge. And if that person is still around, this is a good time to be grateful, to say those words of gratitude to them, because they did what this gospel said. They followed the command to love in the way in which God loved us in our goodness, our holiness, our potential. So if they are still around, then be grateful. Be grateful to them in very obvious and very vocal ways. But it is also a time to challenge ourselves, to say, this gospel is still alive for us. It's a reminder to you and me to affirm in others, to love others as this God has loved us. If God has loved us in all our weaknesses and our frailty and still says we are good, we must do the same for one another. So the gospel calls me to be grateful for those who have been before me, but also challenges me to do the same for others. There was a famous and successful college football coach, and he was interviewed and he was asked about his success. What made him successful when so many others don't achieve the same level of success he did? And he said, in being rather self-effacing, he was saying, I'm nothing more than just a plow hand on the farm, for he was a Southern coach. He said, all I really do are three things with those whom I coach. He said, when things are not going well, I say, it's my fault. And when things go pretty well, I say, look what we're doing, look what we did. And he said, when we do things very well and have great success, he says, look at all you did. Look what you accomplished. That's all he says. Three simple things and you can get anybody to be successful. I think there's much truth in that. Oh, I don't want to say that you can create a successful team simply on affirmation, but don't undervalue the gift you bring to one another in your affirmation, in your love. You enrich someone beyond that what they could imagine. So it seems to me that we need to do that. We need to acknowledge those who have affirmed ourselves, you and I, in our goodness, and done what Christ said, love one another as I have loved you. And I know, too, that just being affirmed will not make you successful, will not keep us from difficulty or challenges, but it will go a long way in enabling us to weather those challenges and to confront those difficulties. It will go a long way in helping us realize and recognize that deep within us, God has placed goodness, value, and worth. So maybe we need to not only be grateful for those who have mothered us, who have companioned us, who have affirmed us in life, but maybe we also need to challenge ourselves in the same way, to follow that command, to affirm another, to bring out in another the goodness, to do what the gospel said. Do as I have commanded. Love one another as I have loved you.